primarily we're three guys talking about games, and we have our bestest female friend gamer to show that we're not horrible and misogynist.
That's not the reason why she's here.
No,
But also, you're not.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. Thanks. Welcome to SideQuest Source, the natural 19 of podcasts. I didn't want to say natural 20 because we're not perfect, but you know what? For some people, a natural 19 is still a crit. Also, there's a podcast about the biology of Dungeons and Dragons that uses that name, so I don't want to tread on their toes.
Okay, so these next few episodes are going to be a bit different because we're going to be recording at Tom's summer cabin.
And this time, we are joined by an extra friend of ours. Welcome to friend of the podcast and friend in real life, Cherie, or CJ.
Yeah.
Hey!
Hello.
Could you please tell everyone just a little bit about yourself?
Oh, well, yeah, I'm CJ. I study neurobiology and I paint on the side.
But I'm telling you, her art is really, really cool. We'll tag her Instagram page, her webpage. Yeah, Instagram on the podcast episode so that you can have a look and see.
I have an original piece of work hanging up in my bedroom. It is absolutely beautiful. My wife and I are very happy with it.
I'm glad you like
I
it
will
so much.
personally endorse
Cherie's paintings.
Cherie's paintings. Yeah.
Yeah.
There'll be the link there. Check them out. She's a wonderful and wonderfully talented person.
But apart from the art and stuff, I mean, you've been playing with us for ever.
Oh, yes.
From the very beginning.
Years.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, geez.
I would say I probably have known CJ longer than I've known Max.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
That could be,
I mean,
yeah.
I think you're one of the first friends I made in Finland, along with Steffi back in 2004 when I moved here. So
Yeah.
we go way back. And if I'd just moved to Finland a couple of years earlier, I might have been your maths teacher as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
True.
She graduated from one of the first schools that I taught at in Finland as well. I mean, I was a relatively young teacher at the time, and she was a final year high school student.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm not that much older than her.
We've already now done a month of podcasting, or 5 episodes so far, and it seems like people are listening to us.
Yeah.
Hello there,
Hi! Thank you,
listeners.
listeners. Yes, this is great. I mean, we've had an awful lot of fun recording these, and we've managed to already record another special edition. This time we're going to be playing Paranoia, and that went rather insane.
Oh God.
So get ready for that. That'll be in probably in about 4 weeks. But yes, we'd like to hear from you guys who are listening. Please feel free to drop a line on our Twitter page, on our Facebook page. You can even, I guess, can you do it nowadays on Instagram?
Yeah, you can send DMs in Insta.
Yeah, send a DM on Instagram.
Comment a picture or something.
Yeah, comment a picture. Tell us what you want us to play. If you like it, if you hate it, whatever. Are we right? Are we wrong with our thoughts on gaming and such? Please, we like to get to know who's listening.
It's okay. We already know that you're wrong with your thoughts on gaming, Steffi. You don't have to.
Yeah, I know. I'm always wrong about everything.
Yes.
No, I'm secretly right.
Yeah. So we're always secretly right, and he makes it very obvious that we are all wrong whenever he's losing. It's our fault. We didn't explain things properly.
Yeah, well, yes, of course. Whenever I'm losing, it's obviously not my fault.
Yes.
It's just because other people are neglecting. No, they're not neglecting. They're purposefully not telling me the rules of the game.
Yes, purposefully.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And when he wins, that is an example of a perfectly designed game.
Yes, that's when the game is good. Yes, when I can win. All right. Well, hey, okay. Speaking of winning, I mean, we played Tricarion. We've been talking about Tricarion a lot. And that was a great game. And I won.
Yes.
Moving on.
Finally won.
I finally won.
Won. Yeah. Okay. Speaking of Tricarion, we play different kinds of games, and Tricarion is an example of a very good game that is pretty obviously very daunting for people because it's a big Euro game. It's a big box with beautiful art and a lot of pieces.
Yes, a lot of stuff is in that box, especially when you go for the collector's edition.
Yeah, well, the collector's edition does have the advantage of having some of these trays where a lot of the markers will be pre-organized.
Yeah.
So in that sense, it does make setup a bit faster. Mm-hmm. But if you have the basic game, you end up having mini grip bags, small plastic bags full of all kinds of. You have your meeples, you have your cardboard squares, all kinds of stuff, and the setup takes a long time. For people who enjoy the game, of course, if the setup then pays off. But what do you guys think? Like, anything else to say about the game and how it might be daunting for beginners, people who aren't that into Euro games or massively scary looking big boxes?
Well, yeah, it looks very scary when you open it up and there's a million different pieces and you have no idea where anything goes. But it turns out it actually is quite easy to understand. Once you just know what all of the pieces do, it's quite obvious where they go and why they're there and what you're supposed to do with them.
Yeah.
Yeah, the rule book is particularly well written, so it's easy to follow. The gameplay is well thought out. So yeah, I really do like that game. The one fault I have with it, not fault, but the one thing that the game doesn't have is grandness of scale. It's a wonderful game. You play illusion designers trying to set up illusions for a grand magic show, and the gameplay is wonderfully rich. You are making agonizingly difficult decisions about what you're going to be doing 3 turns in advance. So there's this real nice depth of strategy. But what it lacks that some other games have is grandness of scale. You're not saving the world from alien invasion. You're not surviving a zombie apocalypse. And I don't mind that. I don't mind that it doesn't have this grandness of scale. But, that tiny hint of epicness is nice.
I beg to differ. I disagree too.
Okay.
I think Tricarion actually has quite a large grandness of scale within the scope of its own world. The whole story behind Tricarion is that Dalgard is dying. He's the greatest magician ever, and he sets up this competition in order for people to get the stone, the Tricarion stone. And this is the grand competition. This is like there can be only one thing. And for the entire, 7 weeks? Yeah, for the 7 weeks, everyone is practicing and performing the greatest tricks, and the best one will get the stone. And then there is the sequel, which comes Dalgar's Academy, where then the person who's gotten it, now everyone has money, basically. They're going to start creating this new academy that will create more magicians. I think that is pretty grand within the scale of its own story.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very comparable to the movies The Prestige.
Yeah.
And what was the other one? The Illusionist?
The Illusionist, yeah.
Because it is happening on the grand stage. It is on theater in front of a lot of people. That is pretty epic. And personally, I do like it that it's not too grandiose, because with a lot of games, the stories like that,
it feels forced.
It got forced and pretentious. It's, you have to save the world with your magic tricks. And why does that affect the world? But when this one has the grand epicness of you competing with other magicians, other performers, simply with who has the best shows, best advertising, who becomes the most famous. Like there's the add-on with the dark alley and stuff, which gives hints of like maybe the real magic in the world, which in my opinion makes the game a little bit too convoluted maybe, but that is I'm speaking pretty much of ignorance, because I've tried it once and I got just confused. I like the basic game itself is just perfect as it is, and I would like to play more of the add-ons, but I haven't really tried them out yet.
Yeah, I just wanted to add to the grand scale, the epicness thing, that there are games out there that do that already. We don't need another one, because you get numb to that as well. So when you don't want to be saving the world and having mega explosions and whatnot in the background, then this is more relatable. You actually feel like you have a stake in it, which is different from those mega huge games.
Absolutely. It is a very subjective thing, and
yeah.
I accept that other people's experiences will be different than mine. Not taking anything away from the Tricarion game, it is still genuinely one of my favourite board games,
yes.
And I will recommend it to anyone who enjoys a slightly more complicated level of game.
This is actually a very good topic when it comes to like the feeling of grandness in games. Like, is it a good thing? Is it a bad thing? I mean, Tricarion, I mean, we some of us disagree on like, is it grand or not? But what are other kinds of board games then that would also have this kind of like what's a board game that is too grand or not grand enough?
Well, let's stick with nice grand board games. Anything that's a survival game, where your personal survival is at stake. That has an element of grandness built in, whether it's zombie survival or exploring Antarctica against various cults. That's really nice. And then we've got games that aren't grand at all. We've just played Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, which is about dinosaur ranching. It's fun, but it's definitely not a grand scale game.
No.
Games that are overly grand. Oh, that's a tough one.
I
Or
think I know.
underly grand.
I think I know a game that is overly grand.
Go on.
For what it is. I mean, it kind of works in its favor, but sometimes it might kind of get lost in its grandness. Is what we played last night, T.I.M.E Stories.
Yes. Yeah.
Could that be too grand for its own good?
No, I would, because it's Time Stories is more of a choose your own adventure book meets board game meets pen and paper role playing game. It is a light role playing game in the sense that there's a lot of pre-made games, pre-made like the maps. Your choices are limited. There's characters that have already been made, and it's, I don't know, because it's very narrative focused, and it doesn't really feel that it's too grand. It's a bit silly and campy in its own way with the whole time travel thing, and your agent's name is Bob, and it looks like Seal, but and that, so that it does break its own grandness in that kind of being a bit silly about itself.
But I mean,
But just a hint.
I mean, what I mean is that, like, I mean, I love T.I.M.E Stories, and T.I.M E Stories is great because every add-on pack, I wouldn't call it add-on pack, every adventure is its own story and is its own game almost, because it works different from the one before.
Oh, yeah.
CJ, you played it now only once. You haven't played the previous one. So one we played before was a zombie one. So instead of having like the magic in this one and more of the D&D kind of feel, it was just a zombie survival horror. We were shooting zombies and there were lots of them, and there was like lots of fighting. Not so much this kind of talking, puzzle solving adventure route. There was just lots of, little weird things.
Yeah, action survival. This one, this one had some encounters that but a lot of encounters were pretty balanced, and the zombie one had unbalanced encounters. It was more of the survival, avoiding the encounters.
But like the very first one is when you go into like the Cthulhu mansion or the asylum one, and then we went into the Marcy case, which was the zombie one. They all felt kind of like contained within the realm. You had the zombie story, you had the Cthulhu story, and now there was like the D&D story, and then it kind of fell off the deep end in the end when suddenly you're like in this castle with all sorts of monsters and robots and people from World War II, Captain America, and it was just like, what?
I don't know if I agree with your analysis there. Sorry for interrupting, but it's because the story is of time travelers. We were sent there, yes, into a D&D fantasy world, but with the point of finding a rip in time. Yeah, and it turns out the bad guy was, why was the rip in time there? Because they were using the rip in time to build this like magnificent army from the various points in history to fight dragons. Which, yes, like I did say before the game started, I'll be severely disappointed if there are no dragons, and there was no dragon. There were hints of dragons, promises of dragons, the threat of dragons, a prophecy of dragons, but no actual dragons were encountered. Yeah. And about this game, like you said, because there's the different kinds, it's this T.I.M E Stories is more like a game engine. And the different adventures aren't add-ons, they're books in themselves, and that function within this game engine.
Yeah, okay, that's fair enough. Yep.
Yeah, it was fun joining in when other people had played some of these before, but because the mechanics change, they're playing this for the first time as well. Yeah. So you're kind of at the same place with the people who have played it before.
Exactly. I mean, this was fun because we kind of goofed around saying like, oh, it's the rookie. Because my wife played basically with us she did play with us last time, the last 2 rounds, but she doesn't really enjoy board games as much as we do. And
she's not one of us.
Well, yeah, I guess not.
She's one of the muggles.
Yes.
She's a normie.
Yes. But I love her very much. But when CJ came in, we thought like, okay, it's the rookie and so on and so forth. But it was fun because story-wise, at least, she pulled her weight amazingly well. And in the end, if it wasn't for her ranger character, we would all be dead like 3 times over, and Seal would be very, very unhappy. So
now, on the subject of it being grand scale and epic or not, I want you to think back to the words you said, Max. We were literally travelling through time to repair a rip in time that had been created by an evil time agent who was assembling an army from all history. That's definitely a grand scale game.
To fight dragons.
Dragons. And I want you to think, is this game pretentious? Consider Where is it from?
Oh, God.
Oh,
I can't put that in
British
here.
person.
I am British, so
He hates
yes,
the French.
It's a French game, and I love the game. And thank you, France, for creating this game for us. It is wonderful, and I think it is joyful in its pretentiousness, and I don't have a problem with that at all.
Well, because every story is different. There's always the point of, yes, you are a time agent sent back in time to fix a tear in time.
Yeah.
That is your job. That is why you're being sent back in time. That is the premise of why you're in these various places in history within the essentially multiverse type of reality. And that's why I like, because yes, pretentiousness of this one. There's dragons, there's an army from across time and everything. That's more of a reference to the D&D fantasy world it was happening in, because this book in itself it was portraying all these archetype and an archetypal fact of fantasy adventures with high magic and stuff is being over the top.
But we all agree that it's a grand game then.
Oh yeah,
Oh, yes.
It's a massive grand game.
yeah.
Well,
No.
yeah.
And we
But it's not too much, because it still works, because it's essentially a
Okay.
book,
Yeah,
very
yeah.
narrative focused, so the grandness works there.
Okay, yeah.
now to add to that, whilst I love the game, we can talk about why the game is terrible for us.
Because of the side quest.
Because of the side quest.
Because
we
of
are
the side
side quest source, and we are side quest source, and this is a game where you need to be laser focused on the mission, because time is very, very tight on this game, and every set of actions you do depletes the time remaining in the game. I mean, not the gameplay time, but the time you have for your mission. You have a series of
Time units.
And when you run out of time, you are pulled out of the game and have to restart the mission.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, because you don't actually fail. There's no game over. No. You just restart,
And that's
why when we played this mission, and it took us 9 hours.
Yes, because we didn't realize, but it makes sense now in the end, was that there's multiple ways to get to the end game of the game. One kind of per character, so that no one feels left out. Everyone has a possibility to be the main character to bring you to the spot.
Yeah.
And we didn't realize this. We were all the time thinking, okay, there must be another way in, which was kind of true, but we were finding all the alternative ways to get to point A that we already got to in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And then we were going around, okay, let's do this again. Let's do this again. And now it went to point A. Okay, well, what about this other way? Maybe that'll lead past point A, when we realized that they all lead to point A.
But what we just had to do was punch through.
Moving on, what is a game that is like not epic enough, or not grand enough? Something that it maybe promises it to be, but it's not.
Well, this isn't a flaw of the game, but we played Paranoia, and Paranoia is decidedly unepic. It is joyfully
the
mundane.
antithesis of epicness.
It is
epically bureaucratic.
Yes, your mission is not to slay dragons or defeat terrorists or save the world. Your mission is unplug and replug this machine. Thank you, friend computer.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
That's
also,
it.
Yes, your mission is to follow orders and not deviate.
Yes.
And
Do what you're told.
to do what you're told and
Not question it.
Do not question friend computer, and fill in the correct forms fully.
And for me, as someone who plays a lot of role-play games, it took a bit of adjustment to the scale of the game. But once you learn to revel in the absurdity of it, it's fun. It's good. You can. My mission is to unplug and replug this, and I'm going to do that. And I'm not going to let corporate pirates, leaky strawberry jam, or robotic tentacle monsters get in my way. I'm going to complete my mission.
Friend computer likes what you're saying.
Thank you, friend computer. I like what I'm saying too, and I like that you like it.
I mean, that is a mundane role-playing game, but still pretty great. But can we think of like a board game that is like, you look at the blocks and you're just like, oh man, this is going to be so epic. It's going to be so good. And then you play it and you're like...
Oh, of course, Crusader Kings.
Crusader Kings.
No.
But we've ragged on that before.
We've ragged on that before.
Yes, but it's also going to be... It promises so much, and none of the game matters. It's all about getting the gold coins. There's all this epic stuff you can do, but it's pointless.
But the grandness is still there. You're still...
It's a lie of... A grandness that is a lie, and its promises and lets you do all these things that do not matter isn't grand. That's... I just feel betrayed by being sold like an inflatable cake when I was expecting an actual cake.
Okay, fair enough. Well, okay. I guess we can lead into then grandness of board games and like what makes a good board game, blah, blah, blah. Rule books of board games. We touched upon this a bit earlier.
Oof, the early Martians.
Yeah. Well,
First Martians.
Let's go back to Tricarion.
Yes.
It has an excellent rule book.
Ooh.
Very clear, very concise. And when we ran into a few questions, we could quickly go back and read and be like, okay, I get it. Yeah. Let's move on.
And also because all the cards and the actions have very, very obvious symbols.
Yes, everything's on the board.
Everything on the board, on the cards, on the squares. So some of them might look confusing at first, but once you understand, this means this, and therefore this leads to this, it's very logical. There's actually very little to question. There's very few times you will need to refer back to the rule book, because in other games, when I do this, this leads this. What exactly were my possible actions? Let me recheck the rule book. Whereas in Tricarion, it's all on the board.
Yeah, but that's good game design.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
the board design, because the rules are printed on the board. So I link that into a well-written rule book is also a well-designed game board, so that its function is obvious.
And even slightly confusing-looking markings on the game board, if they're there just to give you a quick reminder of what this thing does, and when you know the rule mechanics, it makes sense to you. That's all you really need. And one of the things I really, really hate about badly made rule books is you're looking for a specific thing and you just can't find it anywhere. You know it's in there, but it's gone now.
Yeah. And it bogs down the game when one guy's flipping through the rule books. He's like, I swear it's right. He's like, what page is it on? And you're just like, that's shitty.
But every time you guys were looking something up, it was instantly you found it. You knew where to look. So apparently it is awesome.
Now, one of the games that I've played with you, CJ, I've never read the rule book for Flux. I've played it with you, and you just showed it to me. Is it a complex rule book?
No, it's very short, actually, but it's not an especially well-written rule book, in my opinion. But since the rules are on the cards, that is the rule book, essentially.
Yeah,
You're just playing the game.
The cards change the rules, so...
Yes.
Okay.
So all of the rules are all the time there on the table. That's all you need.
Because you taught me how to play that in about 5 minutes, and it came off really nicely. So I never even saw the rulebook for that.
Yeah.
You know, this reminds me when I a couple of weeks ago I managed to play that demo game of a new upcoming game coming to Kickstarter called Agamonia, and I mean it's already incredible. I think we have to talk about it later. I hope I can pull all you guys to play this game because it's going to be insane.
I'm in for that. Yeah.
Yeah. But what I really liked about the game was when the designer was setting up the game, and I was looking at the board, and he placed my character sheet in front of me, or not sheet, but the character card with everything. I could already start picking up the rules by only looking at the board and looking and like, okay, I kind of figure out what to do. It's like so ready for you to play that you don't even need to read the rule book. Another great example is Detective, because you have basically the first campaign or the first investigation teaches you how to play at the same time. All players get to play. Fog of Love, the entire first game, you don't even touch the rulebook. You play through it all. Everything's in the cards. And then after you've done that, you're like, okay, now you know how to play.
That sounds good.
We can talk barrier to entry here. How difficult is it for a new player to get started? And you've got games like Tiny Epic Dinosaurs, which we've just played an hour or so ago, and we'll get into more talk about that later. But the rulebook is super nicely written out, and as you read through the rulebook step by step, it tells you how to set up, it tells you how to play, and then just repeat. And it's low barrier to entry play. You've got something like Dungeons and Dragons, which we all play, we all love, but for someone who's never played it before, picking up a set of big, thick, chunky rulebooks and trying to work out how everything gets put together is difficult. There are lots of great tools out there and lots of great videos that will go through it, but it's a daunting process, and especially if you've got a games master who's not experienced, that can be really difficult. I like games like Paranoia that we just played, where the character creation bit is fun and it builds your character in a fun way, in a narrative way, and you kind of get to grips with how the game mechanic works as you build the character. So that's got a much lower barrier to entry. Tricarion, that box is really daunting.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
intimidating.
but then again, I mean, to carry on, it has a scary setup. The game itself, if I would, I'm pretty sure someone who's never played it before, if I brought them to a table with Tricarion already set up, that would be a pretty low barrier to entry, because it has a lot of moving parts, but they're very logical, very simple, and it all makes sense pretty quickly.
It's like a Swiss clock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would probably not buy Tricarion for that reason. That having dyslexia, I do not want to read the rule book. But knowing that now, later, that rule book is well written, lowers that barrier. But just the setup makes it difficult to begin if you haven't ever played it before. But now having played it, I would actually like to buy it.
Yeah.
So
it's one of those. It's a scary looking box with lots of parts that look daunting and take a lot of time to set up. But the game itself moves pretty well and pretty quickly. And I just want to refer to another thing that was brought up earlier, and that was when talking about Flux and easy access games, easy to understand games. A good example of those, in general, many card games are very easy access because the cards themselves have the rules on them. So it is you essentially the only rules you might need to check in the rule book are like maybe some special effects on the card in case it's too complex. But mostly it's just the turn order, and that's usually on its own card, so everyone has it. And a good example of a really sort of like easy to understand game where there are changes in the cards and they're very obvious, in my opinion, is Gloom.
Yes, there are also badly made card games where there's just a word on the card and you have to already know from the rule book what that word means.
Yeah.
And it's not clear from the word itself. And it's some complicated mechanic that is not written anywhere on the cards.
Yeah. Oh, yes. And some rules, especially with some badly made card games, it's very annoying when someone explains an effect of a card using a word that has multiple interpretations.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it defeats
or
the card.
a completely made up word.
Yes, or something. And it's like, no, I need a very like logical one. Like, if this rule comes into play, move card A over card B and take, card C gets turned 90 degrees, that kind of stuff. Even though it's just like tap the opponent's floor.
May I ask about, because you touched upon dyslexia.
Yes.
I think that would be a good topic to ask, like, does that come into play when you pick games and so on and so forth?
It actually does. It very much does, because I love playing games. Rule books for me can be quite daunting. Like a well-written rule book where there's clear pictures, colors, separate boxes for things. Like this is where you find all of the setup rules. This is where you find endgame. This is this and that and that. And they all have separate boxes with color codes and clear names and bullet points. Those kinds of things help me with rule books because the visual part of it draws your eye to the correct spot without you having to read every single word.
I think that's actually really good because, I mean, I like rule books that are also clearly, like everything has a section, everything is clearly
color-coded and visualized.
Yeah, because, I mean, I haven't thought about this, but like CJ might unknowingly have a gold standard of what is really a good rule book and a good book. Because I mean, that if it's clearly understood without putting stress upon like too much superfluous information, then you get to play the game.
It brought to mind another fact because English is my third language. I'm a Finn-Swede originally. And when I was a kid, I do remember playing some board games, and some of them were old, and not everything was translated when I was young here in Finland. And one of the things was I didn't understand all the rules, but the pictures helped a lot. So in that sense as well, it's not only for ease of access for people with dyslexia, but also younger players or people who are from with a different language background.
Yeah.
So that you're not completely bound by the language in the text. If you sort of get the gist of it, you'll understand the rules. But then, because usually the most complex part is the setup, and if that is very well visually explained, everything's color coded in the boxes, and there's like, oh, why is this box and this box both orange? Oh, well, because these have to do with the same mechanic, the same rule.
Yeah, and some might say like, oh well, like don't worry about the rule book. You can watch everything on YouTube nowadays on Let's Play videos. I've tried that. And for some reason, I can't follow anything on a Let's Play video or like how to play thing. Maybe if I already know how the game works, I can quickly go through it and be like, oh, that's what they mean. Or maybe if I can see an example of what's in the rule book, but I need to read the rule book. But at the same time, I need the rule book to be clear and concise.
It is the tactile part of like, let's say, setting stuff up. Because for me, it is the three-dimensional space that helps me a lot. Because if I just watch a video, someone explaining, oh, this move, this bit here, and this there, and that's how this thing works. Like I'm not interacting with it. It is very difficult to learn that. Just like in games, if I get a tutorial that's only text, it's very different from like a video game where a tutorial is only text, compared to a tutorial where it's just, now go to the shiny thing and then press this button. Oh, now you've picked up a thing. This is how you pick up things. That will help me understand what I'm doing and remember it a lot easier. And it's the same with board games. If I actually put down the meeple, put down the cards, and this is this deck, and I put it actually physically down, understand that this deck does these things, it links to these.
Yeah.
With just a video, yes, like I don't like Let's Play videos either, except for rules clarification.
Yeah. If you have a rule book that is very clear and concise and has all of those color codes and whatnot, that is not only going to help people who have issues, it's going to help everyone else as well. And even games that have very complicated rule interactions, for example, you can have all of the parts that explain that in more detail, but you can also have the quick rules section that has everything clearly for in-game play and checking. And then you can have the more detailed things in the back where if you really, really want to get deeply into it, then that's where you look.
Yeah, like a what-if section where rules clash, taken out of the main rules.
Yes.
It's
not all intermingled and
that's very good.
difficult.
Very good point.
I think one game, Rebellion, actually has the main rule book, and then it has a quick reference book. That after you've read the main rule book, you have the quick reference book that you have next to you. Kind of like, I think 5th edition 40K had that mini book.
Yeah.
Yeah, some games do that.
Yeah.
It's great.
Good.
I love it. I love that because then you don't go through, like, as you mentioned before, you have to flip through the rule book again and the game stops. You could basically have everything ready in front of you and go through like, oh yeah, this is how it worked.
Well, a lot of games we've played, there's a little reference card, there's the turn order, there's the main symbols, and you can just quickly refer to those without having to stop gameplay to look through a book.
Yeah.
That helps too.
Having a reference card makes... It's nice. It's an extra bonus.
Yeah.
Again, I don't know if this is going to be interest. We might end up not cutting it out. But yeah, Max mentioned we're doing this in his third language, and for Steffi and CJ, we're doing this in their second language. I'm the only native English speaker here. But well, do you consider English to be your mother tongue?
It is in all of my paperwork,
Oh,
and also with dyslexia. Interestingly enough, Finnish, which is my other native language. I have two. I didn't learn one first.
You've always considered yourself fully bilingual.
I've always been bilingual.
Okay.
Yeah.
My parents don't even know which one I started speaking first.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So, thing is, I read English better than I read Finnish.
Okay.
Only for the reason that English has prepositions and Finnish has endings. So you can't shape read words.
Ah, yes, of course. That makes a big difference, doesn't
Yes.
it?
Oh, okay. Never thought of that.
Mind blown.
Yeah.
English, I shape read. I know it's an it just by blob. It looks like it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, we've been here at the cottage playing board games all weekend. We managed to get through a lot less different games than we wanted because we got into the games in a lot more depth than we'd originally thought.
Well, this is what we always do. We have 3 bags full of games. Each bag has like 8 games in them, and we've managed to play 3.
We played 4 games.
4 games. Oh, we did play 4 games.
Yes, we did play 4 games. So but for us, I mean, this is our happy place. We go away, we play games together, we do a bit of podcasting. What else? I mean, what other good gaming experiences can we put together? What have people done? Should we go on a gaming cruise?
No.
We should try and find a day when all of us, or a day, more like a weekend or something, and where all of us are free and go to one of these big game events like Essen, Game Spiel
That'd
or
be
something.
cool.
Yeah, and
Tropicon.
well, there is Tropicon.
When things open up again and
Yeah.
the world is different, then
Exactly. When things have settled down and travel is safe and whatnot, but like definitely go to to Game Spiel or whatever Essen, because that's where all the people are like showing their games, and we can be playing games that people haven't played yet, and that would be really like
And that could be
awesome.
fun, yeah.
Or going to England and try one of those mega games.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
That could be fun. Yeah. Or we can take this whole cottage gaming one step further. We go camping gaming. We could play board games in the woods.
in a tent.
In tents.
Intense outside,
Yeah.
On
with a
the moss.
generator in the background.
No generator. No, we got batteries and maybe like a
hand crank.
hand crank if that.
Oh no,
Uh,
no.
I'm-
a fire.
I'm reliant on electricity to not die in my sleep.
Well, you better bring a car battery.
Well, I have this battery here, so I can.
Yeah,
I
but
can-
if I bring a car battery, can I guarantee that Max isn't going to use it to stimulate himself in unusual places?
No.
I can't.
No, it's yes.
A battery and a
Hey,
padlock.
You know that won't happen because I will only stimulate myself in the usual places.
Yeah, but your usual places are everyone else's unusual ones. So there you go.
Well, that's
right.
no, that's discriminatory.
But is it wrong?
To discriminate?
No, what I said.
I ask you.
Is it incorrect?
Yes.
I will neither deny nor confirm that statement.
Yeah, we've seen the burn marks to prove it.